I knew something was wrong the moment I stepped into the garden hall and saw the look on my husband's face. The baby shower decorations were perfect: soft sage, white roses, gold-rimmed tables I'd paid for, all glowing under the California sun. But Daniel wasn't smiling. He wasn't even pretending. He was standing stiff, jaw tight, clutching a chipped mug I'd seen on his mother's counter 100 times. His mother, Linda, hovered behind him like a storm cloud. That mug was her favorite, ugly beige with a faded sunflower. She used it like a prop whenever she wanted to look fragile and offended at the same time. I tried to shake off the tension. This day was supposed to be beautiful. I'd worked through board meetings, vendor calls, and 2 mergers while 7 months pregnant just to make sure everything would be smooth and tasteful. My friends were arriving. My sister was setting out the cupcakes. Everything smelled like vanilla and eucalyptus. Then Daniel turned toward me with that brittle expression husbands wear right before they say something unforgivable. "We need to talk," he said, loud enough that the nearest tables paused. "Now." My heart thudded. "Can this wait until after?" "No," he snapped. "It can't." The room seemed to hush on its own. I saw phones lowering, heads tilting, the soft shifting of gossip-hungry bodies. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket. No, not just paper. A printed email. Linda's lips curled with satisfaction. Daniel shook it at me. "Explain this." I blinked. "Explain what?" "A message from some guy named Evan. Asking if the appointment went okay and if you're still keeping him updated." I stared, confused. "Evan?" "My genetic counselor." The air thickened. Eyes widened. Someone gasped. And that was when I understood. They thought genetic counselor meant something else. Something scandalous. Daniel stepped closer, voice rising. "Why would you need a genetic counselor unless you weren't sure who the father is?" My stomach dropped. He actually thought I cheated. At my own baby shower. While I was carrying our child. My hands trembled, but my voice stayed calm. That part of me, the CEO version, the negotiator, took over. "Daniel, it's a medical consultation. Because of my family history. You know this." "No," he said, shaking his head violently. "No, I don't. Because you never told me about any appointment. And you didn't tell me you did a DNA test behind my back." A murmur swept through the crowd. My throat tightened. It wasn't a paternity test. It was a hereditary screening. And you knew I was doing it. Linda stepped forward, performing concern like a seasoned actress. "Sweetheart, if there's something you want to confess, we're family. We'll support you." The implication hung in the air like poison. Phones were out now. Recording. Perfect. Exactly what Linda wanted. Daniel tossed the mug onto a nearby table with a clatter. "Just admit it. You cheated. And now you're trying to cover it up with some medical lie." People turned. Looked at me like I was already condemned. And I felt something inside me click. Cold. Precise. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to plead. I'd done nothing wrong. Instead, I reached slowly into my purse and pulled out a sealed envelope, the updated results from the same genetic counseling clinic. I hadn't opened it yet, it arrived the day before. But I suddenly had the terrible, buzzing instinct that whatever was inside was going to change more than my afternoon. "Fine," I said. "Let's open it right here." The crowd leaned in. Daniel scoffed. "Your fake medical report?" I broke the seal. I scanned the first lines. And the air left my lungs. Not because it proved infidelity. But because the test had picked up something unexpected. Something that explained why Daniel was spiraling. Something I would use, quietly, methodically, to dismantle every accusation he'd just thrown at me. Because the report didn't question the paternity. It questioned his. The first line of the report burned into my vision. paternal marker inconsistency detected. I didn't fully react, years of negotiation training kept my face neutral, but inside, something cold and electric sharpened. Daniel didn't notice my stillness. He was too busy feeding the fire he'd started. Well, he demanded. Read it. Go on. Let everyone hear whatever story you made up. I folded the paper once, very slowly. Not hiding it, just controlling it. Containing it. We're not doing this here. Yes, we are, he shouted, and the room flinched. You humiliated me the moment you decided to cheat while carrying my child. A few guests gasped. My sister, Elena, took a step toward me, but I gave her a tiny shake of my head. Not yet. Not here. Linda pressed a hand to her chest. Daniel, honey, be gentle. She's probably overwhelmed. Hormones can make women unpredictable. Unpredictable. That word. Used by manipulative people who love chaos but want to pretend the flames were an accident. I stared at the chipped sunflower mug lying sideways on the table, Linda's little symbol of martyrdom. It made sense she brought it. She planned this. I took a steady breath. Everyone, please enjoy the food. Daniel and I will step outside for a moment. No, he barked, voice cracking. You will explain right now why a man I've never met is emailing you about appointments. Why you needed genetic testing. Why you did a DNA test without me. Then he gestured wildly at my belly. Is this even mine? The room froze. Phone's definitely recording now. There it was, his real fear. The insecurity he'd been nursing for months but never dared voice. The insecurity someone clearly fed. I watched him, shaking, red, embarrassed, and yet determined to drag me down with him. I spoke quietly, but my voice carried. Daniel. The test wasn't about paternity. It was hereditary screening. Because of my father's illness. You knew this. You signed the forms. He frowned, confused for a second. Linda quickly filled the silence. He doesn't remember because you hide things from him. Always have. You're too controlling, dear. Men deserve honesty. The hypocrisy was stunning. Linda, the woman who tracked our grocery receipts and critiqued my job because it emasculated her son, complaining about me being controlling. I clutched the envelope. We're leaving. Daniel stepped in front of me, voice trembling with wounded pride. If you walk out, I'll take it as an admission of guilt. That's when something inside me snapped. Not anger, clarity. Daniel wasn't leading this. He was reacting. Desperate, cornered. And he had been fed misinformation by someone who knew exactly how to spin him into a paranoid spiral. The chipped mug. Linda's presence at every doctor appointment she accidentally tagged along to. Her constant suggestions that my long work hours were suspicious. Her messages on our shared family group chat, always worded like innocent observations. You're home late again, honey. Hope everything is stable. I breathed out slowly. Fine. You want the truth? Then follow me. Before he could speak again, I walked through the double doors into the courtyard. Guests parted like water. Whispers followed. Outside, the sun was bright, warm, and utterly indifferent to the mess inside. Daniel followed, breathing hard. Linda trailed after him. The moment the doors shut behind us, he exploded. Why wouldn't you just tell me the truth from the start? I looked at him, really looked. This wasn't about the baby. This wasn't even about me. This was about something deeper he was terrified to face. Daniel, I said softly, the test didn't question my fidelity. It questioned your genetics. He stopped mid-breath. What? I held the report out, not toward him, but between us. A barrier. The inconsistency wasn't between me and the baby. It was between you and the baby. For a moment, confusion clouded him. Then panic hit like a wave. What do you mean? His voice cracked. I kept my tone steady. It means the markers don't line up with your medical history. Or your family's. And it means we need to talk to a specialist. Linda lunged forward. That's ridiculous. Those tests are unreliable. She's manipulating you. No, I said, stepping back. But someone did manipulate something. And the emails from Evan? They were about a flagged result. One that needed clarification. One that I couldn't ignore. Daniel rubbed his forehead. So, what are you saying? The baby isn't mine? I forced him to meet my eyes. No. I'm saying the test suggests you might not be biologically related to the father you think you are. The courtyard fell into utter silence. Linda went pale. Daniel's face twisted in disbelief. No. No, that's impossible. But deep in his eyes, I saw it, the doubt. Not in me. In his past. I had given him an unexpected pivot, and he didn't know how to handle it. He whispered, "How long have you known?" "I got the first flagged result 2 weeks ago," I said truthfully. "And I've been trying to figure out how to talk to you without hurting you. I didn't know how you'd react." He stared, breathing unsteady. I added, quiet but firm, "But I did not cheat. And you accusing me, publicly, cruelly, will have consequences." Linda stiffened. "You can't blame Daniel. You pushed him to this with your secrecy." I turned to her, finally letting steel enter my voice. "No, Linda. You pushed him. You've been feeding him doubts. And now you're terrified because this test might expose something you have kept hidden." Her eyes flashed. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Daniel looked between us, confused, betrayed by both sides. For the first time all afternoon, he didn't look at me like the enemy. And for the first time, he looked at Linda like she wasn't his savior, she was a liability. I folded the report again. "We're going home. And we're getting answers. Real ones." Daniel swallowed hard and nodded, shaken. But Linda, she wasn't done. She grabbed my arm in a panic. "You don't understand," she hissed. "You don't know what you're digging into." I gently removed her hand. "Oh, I do," I said. "And I'm going to dig anyway. Because accountability was the moral I chose. And by the time this was over, every secret they buried would be on the table. The same way Daniel tried to put my integrity on display. Except this time, the evidence would speak for itself." The car ride home was silent in that heavy, suffocating way that only happens when truth has been ripped open but no one knows what to do with it yet. Daniel drove. His knuckles were white on the wheel. I sat in the passenger seat, the folded test report resting like a weight on my lap. Every so often he glanced at it, then away, as if it were a live wire he didn't dare touch again. Linda followed us separately, which gave me a few precious moments alone with Daniel before she could inject herself back into the situation. When we stepped inside the house, Daniel sank onto the sofa like the past hour had drained him completely. I didn't sit. I remained standing, holding the report. It felt important, symbolic, to keep the truth physically above him until we talked. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, staring at his hands. "I shouldn't have done that. At the shower. I panicked." "That's not panic," I replied evenly. "That was accusation. Public humiliation. And you didn't ask me, not once, before jumping to the worst conclusion." He swallowed hard. "I know. I know. I feel sick about it." I looked at him. Really looked. This wasn't the same man from the garden hall, red-faced, loud, desperate. This was a man who had just discovered the ground beneath his identity might not be real. "Daniel," I said gently, "what the test picked up, it isn't about our baby. It's about you. And we need clarity." He nodded slowly, eyes unfocused. "I keep thinking about memories. Things that didn't make sense as a kid. Moments where my dad would snap at me for asking questions about his childhood. Times mom would change the subject. He rubbed his face. Why didn't anyone tell me? I didn't answer. Not yet. Because a subtle click sounded from outside the car door. Linda was here. And we both knew she wasn't going to let this conversation unfold naturally. The front door opened before we could even brace ourselves. Linda stormed in, voice already sharp. Daniel. I need to talk to you. Alone. I folded my arms, blocking the hallway a little. No. This involves me. Her eyes flashed. You're twisting this entire situation. You humiliated my son. I cut her off. Your son humiliated himself when he called me a cheater in public. I stayed calm. I offered evidence. He refused reason. Daniel winced, but he didn't contradict me. Linda jabbed a finger toward the report. That test is wrong. Those places always make mistakes. Daniel looked at her. Mom, it wasn't a paternity test. It was a medical screening. They don't just make mistakes. Linda stiffened. And I caught it. A flicker. A tiny flash of fear in her eyes. It wasn't the general anxiety of a worried parent. It was the guilt of someone who feared being exposed. Linda, I said slowly, did you know? Her mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. Know what? She snapped. Too fast. Daniel leaned forward. Mom. Did you know Dad might not be my biological father? Silence. The kind that vibrated. The kind that exposes. Linda's lips trembled, her breath shaky. Daniel, sweetheart, listen to me. That man raised you. That's what matters. He stared at her like she had suddenly turned into a stranger. Did you or didn't you know? Her eyes glistened with tears. Of course I knew, she burst out. But it wasn't what you think. It wasn't cheating. It was complicated. I stepped closer. Complicated how? She spun toward me, venom returning through her tears. You don't get to judge me. Then explain it, I said. Because the test flagged an issue serious enough that the clinic contacted me twice. And the email Daniel saw, that was the genetic counselor urging us to follow up. Not someone I'm cheating with. Linda's breath shuddered. You shouldn't have done that test. Why would you go digging through things that don't concern? It concerns our baby, I said sharply. Our child deserves medical clarity. And Daniel deserves the truth. Daniel's voice dropped, hollow. Did Dad know? She went still. He already knew the answer. He just needed to hear it. No, she whispered. Daniel closed his eyes as if the air itself hurt. So you lied to both of us. I protected you, she cried. You wouldn't understand. You were too young. I did what I had to do. No, I said quietly. You did what protected you. Not him. Her jaw clenched. You've always wanted to drive a wedge between me and Daniel. Ever since he married you. You're doing this on purpose. I shook my head. I didn't choose this. The medical test did. You created the secret. Daniel pressed his palms against his eyes. Mom. I can't believe this. My entire childhood, my entire life, was built on a lie. Linda reached for him desperately. Sweetheart, please. I can explain. No, his voice cracked. You had years to explain. The moment stretched, a fragile thread. But Linda didn't let it break quietly. She turned on me with a cold, trembling fury. This is your fault. If you hadn't done that test. If I hadn't done the test, I said calmly, I would still be standing in a garden full of friends while my husband called me a cheater. Daniel closed his eyes in shame. But Linda wasn't finished. She jabbed the chipped mug she'd brought, now in her purse, toward me like a weapon. You just want to make him doubt me. Like you made him doubt the baby. I exhaled. No, Linda. You did that. You planted every seed. Daniel opened his eyes slowly. Mom, did you tell me to check her messages? Linda froze. And in that stillness, Daniel understood everything. You did, he whispered. You told me to look. You said something was off. You said she seemed distant. You said she was hiding things. Linda backed up, panic rising. I was trying to help you. Protect you. By making me think my wife cheated, he asked, voice cracking. She said nothing. Daniel stood slowly. It was the first time I saw him look at his mother with something close to disappointment instead of fear or blind loyalty. I need air, he murmured. He walked to the back patio and stepped outside, leaving the door open behind him. Linda turned to me, eyes wild. You're ruining everything. No, I said, stepping past her toward the patio. I'm done letting you ruin him. But before I reached the door, my phone buzzed. It was a new email. From Evan, the genetic counselor. Subject line, final documentation attached, confirming affidavit included. Affidavit. My breath caught. This wasn't just medical data anymore. This was notarized. Proof. A proof that I suddenly realized would change everything about what came next, not just for Daniel, but for the entire story Linda had tried to maintain for decades. I opened the email. And the first sentence made my knees go weak. Not with fear. With certainty. The truth wasn't just on my side now. It was documented. I didn't walk outside immediately. Not with the affidavit open on my screen, glowing like a match held over years of gasoline-soaked secrets. Instead, I stood there in the foyer, breath steadying, pulse slowing, everything inside me sharpening into the cold, strategic clarity I always slipped into before a major negotiation. Because this wasn't a family argument anymore. This was documented truth. And someone had lied on paper. I scrolled. The affidavit was short. 2 paragraphs. A single signature. A date that made my stomach twist. It wasn't from Evan, the genetic counselor. It was from Dr. Marla Klein, the attending physician present during Daniel's birth. Her statement confirmed 2 things clearly, formally, irrevocably. Daniel's biological father was not the man listed on his birth certificate. The hospital had attempted to verify paternal information at discharge, but Linda Richardson refused corrections and insisted the paperwork remain unchanged. The final line was the one that cut deepest. This clarification is provided at the adult patient's request for medical accuracy. All information has been confirmed against hospital records preserved in our 1987 archive. I felt the weight of it settle over me. Daniel didn't request this. I did. Because I thought I was screening for hereditary illnesses. Instead, I uncovered a 37-year-old lie, one notarized and stamped with state approval. When I finally stepped onto the patio, Daniel was sitting on the wooden steps, elbows on his knees, staring into the small garden we'd planted together last spring. His face was pale, strained. The man looked like he'd aged 10 years in an hour. I sat beside him, not touching him yet. He didn't look up. I got another email, I said softly. Is it bad? His voice cracked on the last word. It's clarifying. He let out a shaky breath. I don't know what I'm supposed to feel. You don't have to feel anything yet, I said. You just need the truth first. He finally turned his head, eyes glimmering with the fear of a child who has just discovered monsters are real, and not under the bed, but seated at the dinner table. Tell me. I handed him the phone. He read slowly. Very slowly. His lips trembled once. Twice. Then he sucked in a sharp breath and clutched the phone so tightly I thought he might break it. She lied on my birth records, he whispered. Yes. He swallowed. Hard. So my whole life, Dad wasn't my dad. And Mom knew. And she made sure the hospital covered it up. The hospital didn't, I clarified gently. She prevented the correction. He closed his eyes. Why? Why would she do that? Why lie to everyone? Why lie to me? I hesitated. Daniel. I don't know the whole story yet. But I think she was afraid of what the truth would cost. He shook his head. She took my right to know who I am. She did, I said quietly. And then she tried to sabotage our marriage to protect her secret. The realization hit him like a physical blow. She pushed me, he muttered. Into doubting you. Into checking your messages. Into thinking you were cheating. Yes. And she brought that stupid mug to the baby shower because she wanted to play the victim. Yes. He covered his face with his hands. God, what have I done? I humiliated you. I shouted at you. I called you, his voice broke. I called you something I can never take back. I let the silence sit between us for a moment. Not as punishment, but as reality. Then I said, you didn't accuse me because of me. You accused me because your mother built your entire world on a lie, and she was terrified it was finally collapsing. He didn't argue. Because this time, he saw it too. The patio door creaked open behind us. Linda's voice pierced the air, tight with forced calm. Daniel, honey, we need to talk in private. He didn't turn. When she stepped closer, I saw her face clearly. She wasn't crying anymore. She wasn't pleading. She looked cornered. And furious. Daniel, she repeated, give me the phone. No, he said quietly. Not this time. Her nostrils flared. You don't understand the situation. I understand you lied, he said. For 37 years. She took a step closer. Daniel, please, just give me the phone. I rose before she could reach him, holding my ground. If you try to take that phone, I'll call the police. She whipped around, eyes blazing. Don't you dare threaten me. I'm not threatening, I replied. I'm stating a boundary. Linda laughed, sharp, humorless. Oh, don't pretend you're some saint. You've been manipulating him since the day you married him. Daniel finally stood, phone in hand. His voice was low, trembling, but unmistakably firm. No, Mom. You're the one who's been manipulating me. Linda's mouth opened in outrage. But he continued. You made me doubt my wife. You planted every suspicion. You told me she wasn't loyal. You told me her job was a threat. You told me to snoop through her phone. And I believed you because you were my mom. His voice cracked again. But you did all of that to protect your own secret. Linda's face turned chalk white. That's not true, she snapped. I was trying to protect the family. No, Daniel said. You were trying to protect yourself. He held up the phone. This affidavit proves you lied to me, lied to Dad, lied to everyone. Her breathing turned fast and shallow. She reached for him again. Sweetheart, you don't understand the consequences. I understand enough, he said. And I need the truth. For the first time, Linda looked terrified. Truly terrified. As if she knew the truth wasn't just embarrassing. It was dangerous. Not legally, emotionally. Because it would destroy the story she'd built her entire identity around. She backed up a step, shaking her head. I can't do this now. I won't. Then I will, Daniel said. And he walked inside. Linda's voice wobbled behind us. Daniel. Don't you dare, don't you walk away from me. But he didn't stop. Not even once. He went straight to the dining table, sat down, and opened the email again, staring at the affidavit. Finally, he looked at me. Tomorrow, he said, voice steadier than I expected, we're going to find Dr. Klein and get every detail. Every record. Every missing piece. I nodded. We will. And Mom? I raised an eyebrow. What about her? He glanced toward the patio door where Linda hovered like a shadow refusing to disappear. She stays out of this, he said. Completely. For the first time since this nightmare began, I allowed myself to breathe. But deep down, I knew this wasn't over. Because this wasn't just about Daniel's birth anymore. There was something else, something in Linda's reaction, that didn't match mere panic or fear of embarrassment. It felt like she was afraid of someone else. Or something else. And whatever that was, we were going to uncover it. With documentation. With facts. With every ounce of integrity she thought she could twist against us. Tomorrow would bring answers. But tonight, I was finally holding the truth. Morning arrived like a bruise, slow, aching, tender in every place the previous day had struck us. I barely slept. Daniel didn't sleep at all. I heard him pacing between our bedroom and the hallway through most of the night, stopping only to stare at the report again as if trying to decipher the meaning between the lines. By 8 a.m., we were sitting in the car, heading toward the medical center where Dr. Klein worked. Daniel gripped the steering wheel with the same tension he'd held the night before. I kept the affidavit in my folder, along with every correspondence from the clinic, printed and ordered, my instinctive preparation for confrontation. Do you want to call your mom before we go in? I asked gently as he parked. His jaw tightened. No. She'll twist the conversation. She always does. I need facts first. He wasn't cold. He wasn't angry. He wasn't even in denial. He was grieving. The loss of certainty. The loss of identity. The loss of the mother he thought he knew. We walked into the clinic. The receptionist led us to a private consultation room, the kind meant to soften bad news with beige walls and soft lighting. 10 minutes later, Dr. Marla Klein entered, silver hair, sharp eyes, no-nonsense posture. She looked at Daniel with the kind of recognition doctors have when they've watched someone grow from birth to adult. Daniel, she said softly. I wondered when you'd come. He blinked. So, you knew? She sighed, settling into a chair. I knew something wasn't right. At your birth, I tried to correct the paternal information. Your mother refused. At the time, she insisted the listed father was correct. We eventually discharged under her instruction. Why did the hospital keep the records? He asked. Because we're legally required to preserve originals, even when parents contest certain fields. She folded her hands. That affidavit you received is accurate. You have a different biological father. Daniel swallowed hard. Do you know who he is? Dr. Klein hesitated, just long enough to make my stomach tighten. Yes, she said. I do. Daniel's eyes widened. Who? The doctor exhaled slowly. But before I tell you, I need to warn you. The circumstances were complicated. And not entirely consensual. A chill spread through my body. What do you mean? I asked quietly. Dr. Klein chose her words carefully. Your mother was 18. Working part-time. She reported an incident to a nurse at the time. But she refused to file anything official. She said she wanted to move on. Then she met the man who would become your legal father, and she chose to let him raise you. Daniel shook his head. So? Dad never knew? Not unless your mother told him privately. But there was no record of it. His face collapsed. Not in anger, pain. Deep, soul-level pain. I reached for his hand under the table. He squeezed back, desperate for something solid. And the man who, Daniel's voice caught. Who was my biological father, he never knew either. Dr. Klein looked down. He died 29 years ago. Car accident. No family listed. Daniel let out a long, broken breath. The doctor continued quietly. Your mother wasn't protecting herself. She was protecting you. Or at least, she believed she was. I absorbed this slowly. The sharp corners of everything Linda had done, softened. Not forgiven. Not erased. But reframed. She hadn't created the lie out of malice. She created it out of trauma. Daniel looked at me, eyes full of confusion and grief. I don't know what to feel. You don't have to decide today, I said. He nodded weakly. Then, unexpectedly, he asked, so why did she accuse my wife of cheating? The doctor frowned. Accuse her? Daniel exhaled. She told me to check her messages. Said she saw signs of infidelity. Said she had intuition because she had been betrayed before. His voice cracked. But the betrayal wasn't from my wife. It was from her past. And she projected it on us. Dr. Klein closed her eyes in understanding. That can happen. Trauma reshapes perception. We thanked her, gathered the documents, and left. Outside, the air felt colder. Heavy. Honest. Daniel leaned against the car, rubbing his eyes. I need to talk to her. I think she owes you the truth, I said. But when we arrived home, Linda's car wasn't there. Instead, she was standing outside our front door with a suitcase, hands shaking, eyes puffy from tears, posture stiff like a soldier bracing for impact. Daniel, she whispered when she saw us. We need to talk. He approached slowly. Mom, why didn't you tell me? Linda looked at her hands. Because I didn't want you to see me as dirty. My stomach twisted. I didn't want you to think you came from something ugly, she continued. I didn't want you to feel unwanted. So I gave you a father who adored you. Daniel's voice was quiet, trembling. Why didn't you tell me when I was older? Because by then, she swallowed. I didn't want to lose your respect. He wiped his eyes. Mom. I never would have hated you. Yes, you would have, she whispered. You're so good. And I didn't want my pain to become yours. Then her gaze lifted to me, raw, vulnerable, stripped of every manipulative layer she'd worn for years. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said softly. I thought, if I kept everything stable, if I kept control, I could protect Daniel. But I ended up doing the opposite. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. For everything. I didn't speak. Because forgiveness isn't immediate, and apologies don't erase harm. Daniel stepped closer. Mom. I understand why you hid it. But you tried to destroy my marriage to keep your secret safe. She nodded slowly, tears falling. I know. And I regret it. He took a long, steady breath. I need time. The suitcase at her side suddenly made sense. I'll stay with my sister, she said. I won't intrude. I want you to know the truth now. All of it. She walked to her car. Before getting in, she looked back at me. I was wrong about you, she said. You're the only reason he knows the truth. And then she drove away. Daniel stood in the driveway, shoulders shaking. I wrapped my arms around him carefully. He buried his face in my shoulder. I'm sorry, he whispered. You're not the one who hurt me, I replied. He nodded against me. When he finally pulled back, he looked lighter. Still wounded, but lighter. We have one more thing to do, he said. What? He looked toward the house. The baby shower. The people who recorded you. The accusations. The humiliation. Ah. Accountability. He wasn't asking for revenge. He was asking for truth. And truth was exactly what I had. The affidavit. The medical notes. The flagged hereditary inconsistencies. The time-stamped emails. And every message Linda sent pushing him to suspect me. All the documentation she never expected me to keep. Daniel squeezed my hand. We're going to clear your name, he said. Properly. And I realized this wasn't just about repairing us. It was about reclaiming my dignity. Publicly. The same way it was taken from me. We didn't rush. That was important. Public truth requires calm delivery, not emotional fire. Emotional fire makes you look defensive, calm makes you look correct. I'd learned that in boardrooms long before I learned it in marriage. By the next afternoon, Daniel had asked the event coordinator for the baby shower guest list, emails, names, and numbers. Half of them had already texted him privately, worried or curious. A handful had even sent him clips of the moment he accused me, clearly thinking they were doing him a favor. He spent hours watching those videos. Every angle. Every cruel whisper. Every stunned gasp. And every second of Linda's carefully staged martyrdom. By the time he was done, the shame on his face wasn't something I needed to punish him for. It was already carving into him deeper than guilt could. We do this my way, I said. Calm. Clear. Factual. No theatrics. He nodded. Okay. I drafted the message, letting the lawyer-esque version of myself take over, not aggressive, not passive, simply surgical. Subject, about yesterday's baby shower. Daniel typed it all under his own name. He explained the misunderstanding. He explained the flagged hereditary result. He explained that the DNA screening was medical, not marital. He explained that he had jumped to conclusions, influenced by family trauma he was just now uncovering. He took full responsibility. Then we attached 3 documents. The time-stamped email chain with the genetic counselor. The formal explanation of the hereditary marker inconsistency. The notarized affidavit from Dr. Klein. No dramatics. No, my wife is innocent. Just facts. He sent it to everyone who had witnessed the scene. 20 minutes later, replies began pouring in. Shock. Support. Apologies. Sympathy. Regret for having believed the worst. Aunts who said they never trusted Linda's tone. Friends who said they were horrified at how I'd been treated. Colleagues from his office who said, diplomatically, that they respected Daniel's honesty and were sorry for what I endured. But the best message was from the same cousin who had recorded everything and posted a clipped version to the family group chat without context. His message was short. I deleted the video. And I deeply apologize. I misjudged everything. Good. That mattered. Not because I needed validation, but because people who help spread a lie should help clean it up. By evening, everyone knew the truth. But one thing was still missing. Linda. She hadn't texted. Hadn't called. Hadn't asked to defend herself. She was silent, not out of pride, but because every defense she'd ever used had just collapsed. It was Daniel who suggested it. Let's invite the immediate family, he said. My uncles, aunts, cousins. Just the ones closest to her. She needs to hear the truth in front of the people she used to manipulate with that fragile routine. I studied his face. He wasn't being vengeful. He was reclaiming power. Okay, I said. But we keep it controlled. No yelling. No chaos. He nodded. Agreed. We hosted them that weekend. 9 people sat in our living room, most of them older, most of them used to listening to Linda's version of events since Daniel was born. She arrived last, hesitating at the doorway like she wasn't sure she deserved to enter. Daniel didn't soften. Sit, he said gently, we need to talk. Once everyone was settled, he opened with one sentence. Everything you think happened at the baby shower is wrong. He passed around printed copies of the affidavit, the hereditary findings, and the email chain, because paper has weight, and weight makes truth undeniable. Shock rippled across the room. His Aunt Maggie gasped. His Uncle Ron looked furious, but not at us. His cousins exchanged stunned glances. Linda's face drained of color. But Daniel wasn't done. He turned to her, folding his hands calmly. Mom, I know you thought you were protecting me. But you hurt me. And you hurt my wife. And that ends today. Linda wiped her eyes. Daniel, I never meant to. I know, he said quietly. But intentions don't erase consequences.